The banker has given Ravi Karunanayake, Sri Lanka's finance minister, the award for Best Finance Minister of the Year in Asia Pacific, and this was for his work done in 2016. Some of his achievements include securing a $1.5 billion IMF loan program, which includes fiscal consolidation, among other objectives. And today, to go through all of this work done at the Finance Ministry, I'm joined by the Minister himself. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
So obviously, I think a big part of your role as Finance Minister in 2016 was securing this IMF loan program that Sri Lanka needed to halt a potential balance of payments crisis, replenish reserves, and ultimately it will undoubtedly help to attract even more, I guess, foreign investors. And a big part of your work on the back of this has been working towards fiscal consolidation, especially by increasing tax revenue, which was a bit of a problem for Sri Lanka in the past. So how have you done that, and what are the results as of now?
Firstly, thank you very much for giving this award. And I think IMF 1 was one of the areas of consolidation. What we wanted was we set upon fiscal consolidation at 3.5 by end of 2020. So on that basis, we needed to ensure that each year that we had a progressive approach towards that. And certainly when we inherited the economy on the 8th of January 2015, it was a perilous economy that was handed over to us. Revenues are just 10.2% of GDP, and today we have managed to push it up to almost 14%, and by end of this year we hope it will be roughly 15.5. Now the areas where there were a lot of fiscal slippages that were there, and owing to financial discipline being brought in, fiscal consolidation, we were able to have an additional fiscal space, and through that area we have been able to increase our capital spend, trying to attract the foreign direct investments, and having a very vibrant local industry that is going on. So I think it was necessary to give the message that now is a government that is serious to get the economy moving and integrate with the world.
And I guess another big part of the work that you're doing that is in line with this IMF program is also trying to tackle state-owned enterprise reforms. I know that now Sri Lanka has agreed to a set of reforms. For example, the airlines, the country has decided to sell 49% of it. What kind of policies are you pushing in terms of reforming the state-owned enterprises?
Well, I think it was a thing that we set our mark on, despite the fact that IMF was coming as well, because any case we were going to have the state-owned enterprises being commercially oriented, able to stand on their own feet. And one of the areas that was having a major problem was the Sri Lankan Airlines, which was indebted to, in Sri Lankan terms, rupees is 146 billion, with a further 160 billion as contingent liabilities. So we had to get that off, because there was no point taxpayers paying to ensure people fly from one country to another and get the taxpayers paying for that. Now we have looked at a commercialization process, and we are looking at giving 49% and the management exclusively. So I think that would be one matter that will be off the ground. The other areas have been the Ports Authority, the airport aviation, the CB, and the areas of petroleum. All of them are not to be privatized. These are to be protected, but to ensure that they are independently able to stand on their feet. This is what we are heading. Just before we came in, these strategic entities signed an agreement with the Finance Ministry to pursue the ideas that have been set together, so that they'll be falling in line with the overall projection of the Finance Ministry on behalf of the strategic intents.
And in 2017, if we had to look at the next 12 months, if there is a specific policy objective that you really think it is a key priority for the Finance Ministry this year, what would that be?
Well, I would think the most important thing is to ensure that the budget that we put to place is implemented to the letter, where the ministries, the line ministries spend their monies that are due and the revenues are collected, and to ensure that the rupee is stabilized. That's one area that we would like to see, because destabilization of that has a major cost push inflation in our country, because almost 70% of the imports of the country's economy is on imports, and any import would basically have a cost push if there is a destabilization. In the same way, we are looking actively on certain non-strategic investments to be privatized, such as the hotels and leisure industry items, which are not important for the economy, as the government needs to run those. We believe that we should be only regulators and the private sector to run the economy.
And finally, I guess, obviously, there's a lot of progress happening in Sri Lanka. There's also, there's been a bit of a hiccup in terms of the central bank's management back in 2015 of a specific treasury bond. There's an ongoing investigation now. The president has recently appointed an independent committee to investigate further. And I know that within Sri Lanka, this is of extreme concern, I guess, also for the public opinion. Many people argue that the Ministry of Finance is an integral part of this situation, mainly because it obviously uses the proceeds of this bond that allegedly was undersold to one of the primary dealers. In terms of your response as Finance Minister of how maybe that could have been avoided, or where the ministry stands in this situation, what would it be?
Well, the best thing that could have happened was to ensure that the Presidential Commission being set upon, and today the Commission is revealing many matters that were not known, and in the process there was a mischievous attempt trying to show that there was some scam in the process, and today it is unraveling everything that was there, because the intention was very pure. We were requiring funds, and the tenure of the loan that was taken was increased from 1 to 10 billion. That was the only question mark that was there. But it also helped reduce interest rates in the short run. So I would say I wouldn't want to comment anything further, because the investigations are going on, and I'm sure that will basically bring in and to ensure that what was done was in the best interest, and the scam was only in the minds of the opposition, and it was the mischievous element of a residual of the previous regime that are still in governing central bank that created all this fuss about. So, but I don't want, in the same way, we would like to ensure that the question was public auctions as opposed to private placements. So we are basically opposed to private placements because it has its own indulgence with private sector people without a transparency basis. But public auctions permit you to ensure that the monies are taken from the market at the best possible price. So we are pursuing that. My Prime Minister has been very keen on that, and we will be taking this further. On the areas of this fiscal policy, I'm sure the IMF, the World Bank, the ADBs, the JICAs all have been giving us a stupendous support on the areas where the fiscal policies have been perfect. Monetary policies are yet to be falling and put to place, but it has its turbulences today in the world environment. So I'm sure before too long we'll be able to have, while the success of the fiscal policy will also go on to the monetary policy, and the country have a very sound economy.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations once again on the award.
Thank you very much for rewarding us.